All right, let's get right into it. Have you ever been there? You spend months, maybe even years, buried in books, studying a new language, and then the moment of truth comes. Someone asks you a simple question and nothing. You just freeze. Well, if that sounds familiar, you're going to want to hear this. We're about to unpack an incredible story of how someone flipped that script and learned more in just one day than they did in 6 whole months. So, picture this. You put in the work, 360 hours. That's 2 hours every single day without fail. You're feeling pretty good about it, right? You think you're getting somewhere, and then, bam, someone asks you a super simple 6-word question, and your brain just short circuits. It goes completely blank. Not a single word comes out. And that one absolutely soul-crushing moment, that's exactly where this story kicks off. And yeah, this right here, this just lays it all out. It's kind of insane when you look at it. On one hand, you've got this huge investment of time. We're talking 6 solid months. And on the other hand, the payoff, when it really, really mattered, a big fat 0. Not one word spoken in an actual conversation. I mean, how is that even possible? Well, it turns out it all boils down to a massive misunderstanding of what learning actually is. So you gotta ask, right? How did this person end up in this situation? It definitely wasn't because they were lazy. Not at all. In fact, it was the complete opposite. They were trapped in something we can call the illusion of learning. They were working hard every single day, but they were building the wrong thing entirely. And I bet this daily routine looks super familiar to a lot of you. I mean, you're on YouTube watching grammar videos, you've got podcasts playing while you work, you're scrolling through those Instagram pages with cool new vocabulary words. Your notebooks are just full of words. And you're doing this for 2 hours every day. It feels super productive, doesn't it? You get that nice, warm feeling of accomplishment. But here's the kicker. All of this busy work was missing one absolutely critical piece of the puzzle. And that missing piece? That's everything. See, the problem wasn't that he was bad at learning about English. Oh no, he was practically an expert on the subject. The problem was he was terrible at the totally different skill of actually using English. It's like he was studying the sheet music, but he never ever sat down to play the piano. The real test was a conversation, and he had spent 0 time preparing for that. And this brings us right to the heart of the issue, what we can call the consumption versus production gap. It's this giant chasm between just taking information in and actually creating language yourself. And when you see just how lopsided this gap was, it'll all make sense. Just look at these numbers. It's staggering. When he actually broke it all down, out of those 360 hours of so-called practice, a tiny, tiny fraction, maybe 15 hours total, just 4% was spent actually trying to speak a rate. The other 96% just passively consuming. It's no wonder he froze. He had barely ever even tried to speak. And this is what we're talking about when we say the consumption trap. It's so sneaky because you feel like you're being productive. You're watching videos, you're listening to things, you're absorbing information, so you must be learning, right? But here's the thing. Passive consumption doesn't build the active muscles you need for speaking. It's like you're becoming a fantastic sports analyst, but you're not actually training to get on the field and play the game. Let's get really clear on the difference here. On one side, you've got recognition. This is the passive stuff. You hear a word and your brain goes, oh yeah, I know that one. It feels good, it's easy, it's comfortable, it's totally safe. But then you have production. And this is the active part. This is actually digging into your brain, finding that word, and using it in a real sentence on the spot. And how does that feel? It feels hard. It's scary. It can be super uncomfortable. But guess what? That discomfort, that's where the magic happens. That's where all the real learning is. So, after having this huge realization, he decided to do something kind of crazy. He decided to spend one full day, 24 hours, doing only one thing, producing English. No more watching, no more listening, just pure output. And this one single experiment was about to totally rewire how his brain worked. And man, what a day it was. It kicked off at 6 in the morning with him just speaking out loud to himself in an empty room. And he actually ran out of stuff to say after only 10 minutes. A couple hours later, he jumps into his first real conversation. He said his hands were literally shaking, but he pushed through. And then around 3 p.m., during his 4th conversation of the day, something just clicked. Someone asked him a question, and he just answered, without thinking about it, without translating it from his native language first. This was the turning point. It wasn't just about saying words anymore. Something deep inside his brain was actually changing.
The thoughts themselves were starting to form in English. He wasn't a translator anymore. He was a thinker. And that's when he knew this crazy experiment was actually working. I mean, think about it. He'd done more real active practice in that one day than in the entire previous 6 months combined.
So you might be thinking this sounds like some kind of magic trick, but it's not. There's actual science behind why this intense, get-your-hands-dirty approach works so incredibly well. So let's peel back the curtain a little and see what's really going on in the brain. Okay, I absolutely love this analogy. Imagine your brain is this huge, dense forest. Now, when you're just consuming content, listening or reading, that's like walking down a nice paved path that somebody else already made for you. It's super easy, no effort. But producing language, that's like being handed a machete and being told to cut your own path through the thick jungle. It's slow, it's hard, you're going to sweat, but with every swing, you're creating a brand new neural pathway. And the more you walk that new path, the wider and clearer it gets. And really, it all boils down to this one powerful idea. Intensity beats duration, always. It's not about how many hours you put in. It's about the quality and difficulty of those hours. Think about the gym. You can wander around for 2 hours doing easy stuff, or you can have a really intense, focused 30-minute workout. Which one gets results? Well, language learning is the exact same game. And that difference in intensity, it leads to a night and day difference in results. When you look at 6 months of that comfy, passive study, it's like a tiny little nudge to your brain. It's barely a workout. But one single day of that difficult, uncomfortable, active practice, whoa, that is a massive signal to your brain. It's like an earthquake. It forces the brain to sit up, pay attention, and say, okay, I guess we need to adapt here. Time to build some new stuff. And this is a really important point, so let it sink in. Your brain doesn't really change from preparing to do something. It changes when it's put under pressure. That feeling you get in a real conversation, that little bit of panic, that's actually a good thing. That stress forces your brain to release chemicals that lock in memories and seriously speed up the learning process. Okay, so you're probably thinking, do I have to lock myself in a room for a whole day? And the answer is no, definitely not. But you probably do need to flip your approach on its head. So let's talk about a really practical, actionable way to do this. We'll call it the 80-20 fluency flip. You remember that crazy chart from the beginning, the one that was like 96% consumption and only 4% production? Well, the whole idea here is to literally flip it. The new goal is to spend 80% of your study time on active output. That's speaking, writing, creating, and just 20% on the passive input. You're not spending any more time, you're just changing what you do with that time, and the results will be completely different. So, what does that actually look like on a Tuesday afternoon? Well, here's a super simple 1-hour plan you can use. First, for 20 minutes, you just speak out loud to yourself, to your dog. It doesn't matter. Just talk about your day, your goals, anything. No stopping, no looking upwards. Then, for 10 minutes, you write. Again, original thoughts, no translating. And then for the last 30 minutes, and this is the big one, you have a real conversation with a real person. That real pressure is key. This simple little routine forces you to produce. And look, if you take only one thing away from all of this, let it be this. So many of us are waiting. We're waiting until we feel ready, waiting until we feel confident before we start speaking. But that's completely backwards. Confidence doesn't come first. Confidence is the result of speaking. It's the prize you get for doing the scary thing over and over again, especially when you don't feel confident at all. So that really brings us to the final question. And this one's for you. If you're out there stuck in that consumption trap, if you're telling yourself, I just need to learn a little more grammar, or I just need a few more vocabulary words before I'm ready, then please let this be your wake-up call. You have prepared enough. You know enough. The only question left to answer is, when are you going to pick up the machete and start speaking?